What's going on, boys? We have a pretty cool gun here. This is the brand new FN Reflex. This is an interesting gun into the micro compact market because they did things a little bit differently than other manufacturers are doing. And a few of the videos that you see right now, you're gonna see a lot of people compare this to the 509 series. This is doing a disservice to this pistol because there is absolutely nothing in common between this and the FN5 series, the 509, 510, 545. They are completely different guns. All the way down to, this is a hammer-fired gun. The texturing is different, the trigger is different, the trigger shoe is different, the safeties are different, the magazine release is different. Everything's different on this gun. Most notably, this could actually start a pretty cool trend in and of itself. We have guns like the LCP Max that utilized this design philosophy, but this is an internal hammer-fired gun. So what that's going to do is it's going to change the dynamics of the trigger. That is the most impactful difference that you are going to see in this gun. The trigger shoe, you can see like on an FN 509, something like that, there is a hinge in the middle. So we have a 545 here, size difference quite a bit smaller, but we have a 545 here, and you can see there is a hinge in the middle, and then you have the actual trigger on top. Here we can see that the actual trigger shoe, you have the trigger behind it. You can see it's right there. So the trigger is actually behind it, and then it moves once you get the safety out of the way, and then you're at a wall. You have a pretty nice defined wall here, and then extra pressure, really crisp break. So you're gonna notice a significant difference, the feel of the trigger versus pretty much every striker fired gun that I have tried aside from the PDP and maybe a Canic. They have very defined walls. It's much like a single action pull with a striker rather than the typical double action pull that you'll feel on Glocks. You'll feel it on the SIG 365. Here is a Hellcat, one of the most popular carry guns in America right now. Very, very popular. It has a pretty cool trigger as well, but it has that double action feel, so much like a Glock and the 365, where you add pressure, you'll see it's creeping, and then it will break. So that's the double action pull. It's pulling the striker back slightly more before it actually breaks. So as it pulls the striker back, you get that double action feel. This, you have that internal hammer, so all it's doing is releasing the hammer, so you just get this very common term glass rod type feel to the trigger break, which can help with flinching and stuff like that. So we're actually gonna take this down for you and let you see the internals, because that's probably the most fascinating. You have to really push up on this. It's up instead of down, which is always awkward in my opinion, but no trigger pull required when you take it apart. You'll see here we have a big gap, and that's where the hammer is going to hit the firing pin right here. And there is a firing pin safety that the trigger will engage, so that's part of the take-up, is disengaging that firing pin safety. Dual captive recoil spring with a polymer guide rod, typical barrel. But this is the interesting part right here, where you just have the firing pin instead of a striker. And then here you'll see our little hammer. So I'll put my thumb over the hammer, pull the trigger, and you'll see the hammer come up. So this is our little hammer inside. Now, like I said, this is pretty cool. You could actually utilize this in more pistol designs, because as it seems, it gives you a much better trigger pull. Push that all the way down and the hammer will lock back. It gives you a much more crisp trigger pull. Like I was saying before, the magazine release is different. versus the 5 series because it's swappable instead of ambidextrous. I much prefer this versus the 545. You have a very large magazine release on both sides, so when you're carrying it, it's pretty easy to accidentally hit one of them, and when you have a firing grip on the gun, your hand actually covers the other side, and it can prevent you from actuating the actual magazine release as easily. So I much prefer this. It has a nice big one, just like the 5 series, except it's not on the opposite side. That's a significant improvement. You have different texturing on this than you do on the 5 series. The rear and the front are very similar to the 5 series. However, the side is improved with this sandpaper type texture. I actually prefer this to this. I wish they put this all the way around the gun, in my opinion. That would be a lot better. The tire type texture on the front and back, I don't prefer, but it does do its job. It grips into your hand pretty good. You can see the indents, so that does do a decent job. It's not swappable like the 5 series. So yeah, we have just a few differences. The slide release works very well, as you just saw. The sights are fantastic with a very large orangey red circle on the front dot. You get a very easy sight picture, very quick acquisition for iron sights, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that trigger and that internal mechanism is going to be that main difference. That nice crisp break is very unique. We also get 15 round mag, so that's pretty awesome. So this is akin to the 365 macro, I believe, and Hellcat Pro. So this is the Hellcat Pro, the 15 round variant. For a size comparison, we're going to put these back to back. You're going to be able to see just about exactly how big this thing is. So it is, generally speaking, about the same size, a little bit longer for the two guns. The slide's just a little bit taller for the same amount of magazine capacity. We'll put them like that. Again, that's the Hellcat Pro, so it's a little bit longer, but they both offer pick slots, one on this one, two on that one, as you guys can see. If we compare these two guns side by side width-wise, they are very, very similar. You have a really thin slide on the Hellcat. They're both very similar, though, as far as width is concerned. Very comparable guns. Once you take out this and you put a flush fitting magazine, this is going to be very akin to the Hellcat, the normal Hellcat, and size-wise, they did a very good job competing with the typical market of the 365 and the Hellcat. It's smaller than your Shield Plus or that new Canic, stuff like that. So I think that the main selling point is going to be the fact that you have that internal hammer system and the more unique trigger, which I far prefer. Again, we'll just show that real quick. So you have that wall crisp break, and then the typical trigger that you're going to get on the 365. And akin, it's that rolling break. So it's kind of depend on the rolling break. The sights on the Hellcat are phenomenal, though. I actually prefer these U-notch with the yellow versus the square notch, but both fantastic. Let's bring in a 365 so that you guys can see the comparison there. All right, so here we go. Here's a 365. This is a very cool Zev edition. They do a really nice job making the slide look nice. Has a satin finish, silver, like graphite finish. Same exact size, though. This is a normal 365, so we want to just compare these two size-wise. So let's put those back to back. and we'll see how they compare. So you'll see they're almost the exact same size. You could go a little bit further back on the 365, so you get like a quarter of an inch-ish longer. The barrel actually looks like it's a little bit longer on the Reflex, and then we'll put them back to back for a height comparison. Now there is a flush fitting magazine here, so if we look at the height of these two guns, 365 is interesting because it has this steep angle on the front of the magazine. This is the pinky extended magazine, but even then it has, you have like the back is higher than the front. It has that odd shape, whereas like the Hellcat and stuff like that, and this Reflex have a straight bottom of the magazine well. So you have like a oddly taller gun than the 365 looks. However, you can see the grip is very narrow on the 365. It gives it a very small feel in the hand. You're going to get a fuller feel in the hand off the Reflex. And then if we just put them on top of each other, you'll see they are extremely similar in size. We'll do it the other way around. So they're almost exactly the same size from the front strap to the front strap. Pinky extension disregarded. So yeah, and then we'll just show the trigger right here. We have the trigger on our Zev take up, and then you get this rolling, stagey, gritty trigger of your normal 365. It has a much more positive reset. I haven't really mentioned reset that much, but both the 365 and the Hellcat have a very positive reset. However, stagey, gritty triggers. And then one more time, take up, very crisp. Brake and reset is right there. I actually did put that all the way back. Hammer fire gun, you have to remember, hammer fire gun versus striker fire gun. So now, there's the reset. So it's a little bit longer, but the brake is much nicer. So there you go, guys. There's my first video on the FN Reflex. And maybe I'll pick one of these up once we get the red dot ready version and do some shooting with it and compare it more to the Hellcat and 365. Alright guys, there it is.